All right, so hopefully you guys are able to see our screen here of our welcoming screen. We are the House Hunting and Hacking Group. We like to unlock the power of real estate together and share info and discuss it. And we meet on the second and fourth Tuesdays of every month, generally. And we do it at 7 p.m. Mountain Time. And here are our admins of the group. I am Genevieve Henderson, the loan advisor or mortgage broker. And John Nichols is our realtor. And Amber Zamudio is our insurance specialist. And this is our topic for this evening is insuring tomorrow, navigating personal insurance in a world of change. And our presenter is Amber, that insurance specialist, and I, Genevieve, will be moderating this meeting. And so let's switch over. I'm going to stop sharing and let Amber, our presenter, actually share her screen in case she has a if she has a PowerPoint for us to see tonight.
I do. And Gina, if you have any questions, we can use this as an open forum. Please feel free to stop me and ask. You can also type your questions in the chat. But since you're the only person with us tonight, we're happy to just have you with us, and we'll get started now.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Oh, let me see. Got. Oh, 1 second here. All right. Well, as Genevieve said, my name is Amber Zamudio, and I own Zamudio Insurance Services. And tonight we're going to be talking about navigating personal insurance in a world of change. Pop this to full screen mode here. Perfect. The outline of topics we're going to talk about tonight is a little bit about the insurance agency that I run and kind of how it works. We'll talk a little about social changes, climate changes, financial changes, and where do we go from here? As mentioned, I am Amber Zamudio. I'm an insurance specialist, and I am an independent insurance agent. At Zamudio Insurance Services, we help our clients by putting their needs first. I have a very small team. It's myself, my husband, and one other person who helps me on occasion, and I'm actually in the process of bringing someone else on, so we're real excited about that. As an independent insurance agency, we offer a wide range of companies, policies and packages tailor-made to fit your specific insurance needs, whether you're looking to insure your home, auto, recreational, vehicles, rental properties, or business insurance. We have the policy to fit your needs. First off, we'll talk a little bit about the social challenges that are facing most people in insurance and insurance carriers these days. Part of those are going to be immigrant crisis, social unrest, increased number of lawsuits, volatile behavior, risk management, and some underwriting considerations. We in Colorado are currently, and across the United States, are currently experiencing an influx of immigrants. And there are some complications that come into play with this. There are some implications for property insurance, and the influx of immigrants and refugees can impact property insurance in a number of ways. Part of that's overcrowded living conditions in temporary shelters, a lot of refugee camps on the street, sidewalks. And those things may increase the risk of property damage due to accidents, fires, vandalism, and a number of other things. There are liability concerns as well, and that comes into place, when property owners and landlords who maybe are accommodating immigrants face liability risks if inadequate safety measures lead to injuries on properties or property damage. Individuals and insurers need to assess these risks and ensure appropriate coverage for property owners and landlords is in place in these affected areas. Unauthorized entry on premises and falsified leases often required the need of legal help. One thing that we have been seeing a lot is people who are going into premises, squatters in our areas, and they'll take up residence, and it's very hard for people who are legal property owners to remove these folks from the properties. There are a lot of ways that this is kind of happening, and one of those is where somebody will list a property online, say like Craigslist or on Facebook or something of that nature, and they will be acting as a person who is what they're calling the owner of the property or the property management company, something of that nature. And they're creating false leases in order to collect a deposit or to collect, first month rents, things like that, and giving these people leases to properties that they don't actually own. And that's kind of where the difficulty is coming in with kicking people out, because when you have a lease, even if it's falsified, you then have to go through the eviction process. So it is a very interesting time as far as making these changes and stuff like that, getting people in and out. And so it is very challenging for people who find themselves in those situations. It is something where, hopefully it's possible to get them out of those properties, but again, you do have to go through the legal process of that. And evictions, while they can in some states take a long period of time, there are often times as well where it doesn't take as long. In the state of Colorado, you can serve a 10-day possession notice, and then bring them to court essentially and start the eviction process. Oftentimes it takes about 30 days to get a writ, which then will allow a sheriff to come out to the property and remove any of the property that they had brought there as their premises and stuff like that. So, but in those cases, you definitely need the help of legal resources, and Legal Shield is oftentimes a place where you can start, although with things like that, it may be better to go ahead and get like a full lawyer who is going to back you and be there through the court process and stuff, because there is a lot that goes into an eviction. And with these squatters' rights, there are a lot of different kind of challenges that come with those. Along with, sorry, my Zoom keeps, let me see if I can just get this to fit on here. Sorry about that, guys. Let's see here. Why is that? What in the world is happening here? Okay.
Oh, when you click next, it's actually just increasing the zoom.
I know, isn't that weird? Usually I've never done that before, so I don't know what is happening there, but thank you for your patience. As I am like so technically savvy here. Talk about a social challenge, I guess. Forgive me. Another social challenge that we're facing is social unrest, property damage, business interruption. Social unrest, protests, civil disturbances can all result in property damage, vandalism, business interruption losses for property owners and businesses. And property and casualty insurers, you'll see that's the P&C, property and casualty insurers, may experience increased claims activity and need to reassess underwriting guidelines and risk management strategies in areas that are prone to social unrest. So a lot of times during these periods, you'll see your insurance carriers making changes to your policies. And it's very important that when you get your renewals for things like your homeowner's policy, your auto policy, that you're thoroughly going through that documentation, or reaching out to your agent who can possibly advise if there are changes that have been made to your policy, because when there are times of social unrest, they do oftentimes make changes to a policy in order to accommodate the potential for additional risks, essentially. Liability claims, incidents of civil unrest may lead to liability claims against property owners and businesses, law enforcement agencies, and other kind of companies. Insurers must evaluate liability exposures and provide coverage for legal defense costs and settlements arising from these claims. And that is where you also start to see increases in your insurance policies and things of that nature. So it's always important to know what your policy is covering. But then in addition to that, keeping an eye on your insurance policies to see what changes are made. I know a lot of times people don't always, look at their insurance policies and things like that. When you get your insurance policy, you also receive essentially a booklet that goes over all of the coverages that you have on your policy and how those policies work. So what I would recommend is when you get those things, a lot of them are digitally downloaded and whatnot. You can search for certain things if you're, curious about how things work. So if you wanted to see how civil unrest kind of is covered by your policy, you can search that document, and you would want to search something like civil. And then it will go through and highlight the parts of the policy where those things apply. So for instance, let's see, we'll just go here to the first incidence of civil. Your insurance for coverage C, which would be your personal property, would cover things. They insure for direct physical loss to property in the property coverage C section caused by any of the following perils unless the loss is excluded in property exclusions. So you can see here, riot or civil commotion is typically included for coverage C, your personal property. However, if you go down to your exclusions, you would be able to see that there are things that are excluded. So actually this one, unless the loss is excluded in property exclusions, let's see here, where a good example of where you would see like exclusions is. Let me see here. For exclusions, things like that, you'd see it's usually like certain instances, like if a property were not to be usable due to intentional loss. So if you caused a civil riot, your insurance isn't going to cover something like that. It's just kind of the way the cookie crumbles. So it's more so based off of things that are unintentional and things of that nature. Let's go back to full screen here. There are an increased number of lawsuits, which creates a social challenge with insurance litigation trends. The property and casualty insurance industry has seen a huge rise in the frequency and severity of lawsuits in recent years, driven by factors such as changes in legal and regulatory environments, evolving societal attitudes, which are huge and totally crazy a lot of times, and increased awareness of rights among policyholders. The impact on claims cost is increased litigation can lead to higher claim costs for insurers, including expenses related to legal fees, court settlements, and judgments. We're seeing judgments that are higher than we've ever seen in the past. And a lot of that is because we are going through such crazy inflation. The legal expenses are very high. And so it's very important to be sure that you are carrying limits on your policies that would be enough to cover things like this if you needed to use it. One thing that I always recommend is carrying the highest limits of liability that your property insurance offers. And traditionally, you'll see the difference between, say, going from 300,000 to 500,000 is dollars per year. So it's always wise to go with those increased limits for your insurance coverage. Volatile behavior is a huge social challenge that we're facing right now. Instances of volatile behavior like road rage, altercations in public spaces. I don't know, Gina, if you have this term in Buenos Aires, but they call them Karens in America, or Kevins, where people just go off the wall with crazy, like they'll go into McDonald's, their hamburgers missing the ketchup, and they'll go in there and they'll rip to shreds the McDonald's, and they'll throw things at customers, and it's just an insane behavior that people are more willing to express than ever. It's very interesting. But these things can result in personal injury claims involving bodily injury or emotional distress. You know, you go into a scene like that, and it'd be hard for you to go back to work at McDonald's. You know, you could sue that person who then had that fit for emotional distress. You could sue your employer for things like that. Heaven forbid they pick up the cash register and hit you with the cash register. You know, so people are causing a lot more social challenges within insurance, unfortunately. And property and casualty insurers must assess the liability and risks associated with volatile behavior and provide coverage for legal defense and settlements. It just takes one instant for someone to become unhinged, and there are times when your insurance coverage would cover things like that. It's very interesting how those things all play out, but it is part of your insurance, and some things are covered, and of course some aren't. That's where you'd refer back to that document. But in general, just I'd say don't do those things. Again, I don't know that anyone plans to do those things. It just sometimes happens. But property damage claims. The volatile behavior may also lead to property damage claims, like intentional acts of vandalism or destruction of property during disputes or confrontations. Insurers need to address property damage risks arising from volatile behavior and offer coverage options for property owners and businesses affected by such incidents. We see this a lot more kind of on the business end, but there are times when we see craziness in all of the scopes, if you will. Risk management and underwriting considerations. There are enhanced underwriting criterias that have to do with a lot of these things. Insurers may need to adjust underwriting criteria and risk assessment processes to account for social crises and emerging risks associated with immigration influx, social unrest, increased litigation, and volatile behavior. They're taking loss prevention measures, like implementing loss prevention measures. Sorry. My little dog's going to have a little tantrum here. Loss prevention measures, like implementing loss prevention measures, and risk mitigation strategies like security enhancements, safety training. That's a huge thing. You know, when you go into now Home Depot and you see somebody walking out with an entire cart full of product, people are trained now to not apprehend those folks due to safety, not just for the safety of the staff, but the safety of the other patrons of the stores and things of that nature. And community engagement initiatives. All of these things can help insurers reduce the frequency and the severity of claims stemming from social crises. There are policy coverage enhancements that people are taking, insurance carriers are taking. They're offering policy coverage enhancements or endorsements, as we usually call them on the personal lines of insurance, tailored to address specific risks related to social crises such as riot, civil commotion coverage, or increased limits for liability claims arising from that volatile behavior. And they can provide added value to policyholders and improve overall risk management. The next thing that is very important, and one thing that we have seen time after time after time in recent years, especially in the Midwest where we are, is climate changes and the things to consider. We examine the increasing frequency and severity of climate-related events such as wind and hail, wildfires, and floods. We'll discuss today the importance of property insurance, including coverage for natural disasters and how to assess and mitigate risks associated with climate change. And then there are some new underwriting practices and methods that insurers are taking and using in order to decrease their risk and help people to insure their stuff at a more responsible way, if you will. As far as climate changes, there is definitely an increasing frequency and severity of climate related events. We've seen this time after time in Colorado, Nebraska, throughout the Midwest. We've just, even in coastal areas, we just saw a tornado 2 days ago in, I think it was South Carolina. And storms are happening sooner in the year. They're much more severe. They're happening later into the year. There's just such an extreme and such a volatility to these storms that is just devastating. The climate change is contributing to the intensification of storms. They result in higher wind speeds, increased storm surges, more precipitation, bigger hail. I mean, in Colorado, there was a storm last year that had softball size hail. And that's incredible when you consider how big a softball is. And you better bet that there was a lot of damage that took place from those things. All these things lead to greater property damage, infrastructure destruction, and economic losses in all regions. A lot of the insurance challenges that we're currently facing are coming out of the areas like California that had severe fires, and Florida that's had severe hurricanes and wind, water damage, things like that, where it does play a part in the entire country's insurability, the financial stability of the insurance carriers, and things of that nature. Wildfires are huge. We're constantly talking about wildfires, not just in Nebraska, Colorado and California, but we've even had, wildfires in Nebraska, across the plains, the eastern part of Colorado, and, just all over it. It's very wild the way these fires can just spark like that. The wind gusts will just destroy everything and just carry that fire around. Rising temperatures, prolonged droughts are huge, and changing precipitation patterns contribute to the frequency and severity of these wildfires. The fires are destroying homes, businesses, natural habitats, causing significant property damage and environmental degradation. So what'll happen is a fire will come in, it'll burn all of the landscape, then we'll get some rain. At that point, then all the mud sliding down, causing flooding, causing landslides, things of that nature. It's very expensive to then rebuild all the roads, the bridges, all of these things in order to get the properties back into working condition. So that's where a lot of expenses come through with wildfires and things of that nature. Floods are a whole different story. Climate changes amplify the risk of flooding through heavy rainfall events and storm surges. Floods can and absolutely do devastate communities, causing property damage, displacing residents, and disrupting local environments and economies. One thing with flood insurance is not generally covered on your homeowner's insurance policy. However, there are some carriers who do offer flood supplements and things like that. So be sure you're taking a look at that when you're working with your independent insurance broker. And if you live in a flood zone, or if you have had experiences with flood, you always want to look at flood policies. They're sold through the FEMA program, Federal Emergency Management program. There are times when they are affordable. And so, if that's something that you are concerned with, then definitely reach out to a professional who can help you with that. There are other kinds of water that comes into the climate change issues. For instance, last year in Colorado, we had severe rains for a good portion of the spring. I mean, it was rainy pretty much all last year, I felt like. And a lot of times water was not getting pushed away through sump pumps and water drainage systems as quickly as it was coming in. And we saw a lot of basements and things like that experience what they wouldn't consider floods, because there are certain criteria that goes into it being classified as a flood. But there were water entrance into basements and things like that that caused a lot of damage for folks. And you would want to make sure on your insurance policy that you have things like water backup coverage, sump pump malfunction coverage, things like that, in order to ensure that you have some sort of coverage for water damage associated with those types of things. But it is important to read your insurance policies and ensure that you have the correct coverage for your potential loss as far as something like that goes. The importance of property insurance for natural disasters. Well, as you know, property insurance provides financial protection against losses resulting from natural disasters like hurricanes, wildfires, floods, wind and hail, predominantly in the Midwest. It covers repairs or replacement costs for damaged and destroyed properties, as well as additional living expenses occurred during temporary displacement. It is important to work with your insurance agent to ensure that you do have replacement cost on your policy, because there are a lot of policies where your coverage is actual cash value. And so you want to make sure you're in a policy that offers replacement cost. If you don't have that on a current policy, you can always source that and shop other carriers and see if that's an option through another carrier. A lot of these things are going to be dependent on the age of your roof, the quality of your roof, things like that. So that is something that's important to consider. A lot of carriers in Colorado, kind of the Midwest area, Missouri, Nebraska, Arkansas, even, where, you know, they are making it to where if you have a roof that's over 10 years, you are not even going to get an insurance policy. So it's not just actual cash value on the roof. They're saying you are not going to be eligible for an insurance policy with that carrier at all. So it is important to make sure you know what you're being covered for, and you know how your insurance policy works. It's important to have a relationship with your insurance agent, I think, so that you can ask questions that you may feel insecure asking. I know a lot of times I feel like I have a really fun and open relationship with my clients, and it takes a while to get there, but I want everybody to know that it is my job to educate people and to help you to understand how your insurance policy works, what your insurance policy does for you, so that you can ask questions and not feel like, oh my God, she's gonna think I'm so dumb for asking what this is. You don't know a lot of times unless you ask, and no question is dumb, especially when it comes to insurance or anything else. But ask the questions, make sure that you have the coverage that's actually going to protect you. Property insurance typically covers for dwelling structures, personal belongings, and liability protection. However, standard policies may have limitations or exclusions for certain perils like flood or earthquake damage. So it is necessary to facilitate additional insurance coverages or specialized policies if that's something that is, you know, prevalent in your area or that you have a concern with. Assessing and mitigating risks associated with climate change. As far as risk assessment, insurers are using risk modeling tools and data analytics to assess the vulnerability of properties to climate-related risks. This involves evaluating factors like location, exposure to natural hazards, building materials, mitigation measures in place. And anybody who lives in the mountains has experienced the hardships of getting insurance and the questions that come through as far as what kind of brush do you have next to your home? What kind of fire services does your community offer? Things like that. And it's not just directly to wildfire properties, mountainous properties. They want to know these things across the board. You know, when I fill out an application for insurance for a client, I need to know, you know, how far away is a fire hydrant from your property? Excuse me. As far as risk mitigation, property owners can take proactive measures to mitigate risks associated with climate change, like reinforcing structures, installing impact-resistant roofing, community access to fire mitigation methods. I say that one specifically because there are a lot of times communities will come together and they will, you know, work with the fire department to have a game plan on what happens when there is a fire in their community, you know, where the the pools are, or where the ponds are located, and who can help who in order to get residents and stuff out. And it's amazing the way communities come together when there are fires and things like that. And we love to see that. And that's great. But the very best thing we want to see, or the most important thing we want to see, is people taking actions to reduce the amount of, wildfires. Obviously, don't flick your cigarettes out the window. That sounds so old to be saying, because, you don't, in Colorado, at least, you don't oftentimes see people flicking cigarettes out the window. But as people have come into Colorado that traditionally maybe are coming from different areas where smoking and things like that are a lot more common, we have seen a lot more instances where that's becoming a common occurrence. Or people's cars will overheat. They'll pull off on the side of the road to see a deer, and the bottom of their car will start a fire because the heat on the dry grass and stuff like that. So there are so many things that can help reduce those risks, and they're important to be mindful of. Creating defensible spaces, obviously, to reduce the risk of fire or hazards as well. New underwriting practices and methods are becoming more and more prevalent. You'll see insurance carriers using satellites, drones, other new inspection methods. They're using drones to inspect properties quickly and accurately. They're using satellite imaging to determine the amount of tree overhang on a roof. This means faster assessments, reduced paperwork, more convenient processing for you as a property owner. Drones can capture high resolution imaging and detailed data, which allows insurers to better understand your property's condition and any potential risks. And keep in mind, when they're looking at these satellite images, it's not just looking at your property. If you have a neighbor who is a hoarder and a half and has, a sawmill in their backyard and all these crazy things, you better guarantee that you're not going to get insurance coverage with certain carriers. Now, some other carriers will say, okay, that's his liability, but other ones will say that is his liability, yes, but it's our risk that we're, taking on by having somebody who has those characteristics so closely by. I think that's where a lot of times people find value in things like HOAs. That's my nightmare, but to each their own. It's also my nightmare to live next to a hoarder who has, a sawmill in the backyard. So, pick and choose, I guess. But they do allow these insurers to better understand the condition and potential risks. Technology enables insurance companies to offer more customized coverage and to base things based on your property's unique risk profile. You don't want to be judged by someone else's book, if you will. You want an insurance carrier to look at your risks, and in most cases they do look just at your stuff, but there are a number of factors that go into the underwriting and stuff. By integrating the climate data and using remote sensing technologies, insurers can accurately assess vulnerabilities and offer competitive rates that reflect your property's specific risk factors. A lot of insurance carriers are going to self-inspection methods, and this is to allow it easier for your clients to be my clients, for you guys to inspect the property on your terms. You send in pictures, they'll give you a app to download it. It'll say, take a picture of the front yard, hold the phone up as high as you can, take a picture of the roof, yada yada yada, and they will assess the property based on that. And then a lot of times also when you are doing these self-inspections, they'll be looking at the replacement cost estimator and things like that to make sure that the home is insured to value and you're not missing any things as far as that goes. There are a lot of financial challenges that we've been seeing when it comes to insurance, whether it's economic downturns, job losses, inflation, especially related to inflation on prices for insurance. That's something that we are calling our clients on every day, offering strategies for reducing insurance premiums while not cutting coverage and changing things to help people in those regards. There are strategies for building financial resilience, like emergency funds. You would want to have an emergency fund that covers your deductibles. At this time, insurance carriers are often placing a 1%, and 1% would be of your dwelling coverage. And most houses in Colorado, you're looking between, you know, 275 and $1 million for the dwelling coverage. And in those cases, when you have a 1% deductible, you're looking at a pretty high deductible. And in those cases, that's where you want to have a savings bank for that, because you know, maybe some people have, you know, $10,000 just laying around. There are a lot of people who don't. There are a lot of people who don't have the $1,000 laying around for these kind of things, because as we all know, everything has gotten crazy expensive, and it's been a whole thing. So having emergency funds, practicing some debt management, and having correct insurance coverage for your income protection is important too. Things like disability insurance, things of that nature. There are things that you should be looking at as far as safeguarding your assets, retirement savings, long-term financial goals during these turbulent economic times. Economic downturn and job loss can significantly impact personal finances, which lead to reduced income, depleted savings, and of course, increased financial uncertainty. And I think a lot of Americans are currently facing that. A lot of Americans are saying, how do I pay, you know, and now between the tax increase and the insurance increase, how do I pay for these extra things and feed my children? You know, it's a very difficult challenge. And a lot of people in Colorado and surrounding states are being priced out, unfortunately, and having to go to areas that are less expensive and you know, not what they had seen for their futures. Individuals may struggle to meet financial obligations, including mortgages or rent payments, insurance premiums, and other essential expenses like grocery, putting your property and assets at risk. A lot of times what will happen is people won't have money to pay their taxes. You'll see those properties go to a tax lien. Somebody will get a tax lien, they'll foreclose on that house. And then, you know, those people who have put their life into these properties now have just lost everything due to a tax lien. It's a very scary and heartbreaking situation. And there are people who will do it and just don't care. And you know, that's how they roll. I would always recommend to build an emergency fund. Building an emergency fund is essential to weathering financial crises, even if you can only put away you know, one night eating out or something like that. Try to set some savings aside to cover 3 to 6 months worth of living. That is very hard right now. I totally understand that. I'd say do what you can. And this includes things for like insurance premiums, mortgage, rent payments, utilities, and other essentials. Managing debt's crucial during turbulent economic times. Prioritize paying off those high interest debts like credit card balances. Consider consolidating debts or negotiating repayment plans so that you can ease the financial strain. I know that there are things like HELOCs where you can get debt consolidation loans and things like that, which are oftentimes good opportunities, especially if you have an extremely high credit card balance or things like that. And then insurance coverage for income protection, like disability insurance, that could provide financial support in the event of a job loss or disability. Well, disability, but helping maintain financial stability and ongoing expenses. The role of insurance in safeguarding assets, as I've mentioned before, property insurance, including homeowners insurance, renters insurance, those things protect your home, your belongings, your assets essentially against losses due to things like fire, theft, vandalism, natural disasters. Ensure you have adequate coverage. You don't need to have too much coverage, but you don't want to have not enough coverage. So it is important to work with somebody who can help you determine what those limits are, can help you find ways to save. Working with a broker like myself does give you the ability to look at multiple companies. Maybe one is less, maybe one is more. Let's get you into a policy that's less expensive, has adequate coverage, and you know, you don't have to spend as much where you don't need to. As far as the liability insurance, it does safeguard your assets by providing financial protection against claims or lawsuits arising from property damage or bodily injury for which you're held responsible. Think if you have a dog and it bites a child, I've had cases where that's happened. You can be held responsible for those types of things. So making sure you have that liability insurance is very important. Having proper liability coverage on your auto insurance policy to ensure that you know, if you're in an accident, you have enough property damage coverage, you have enough liability coverage for their medical expenses and things of that nature. And don't shortcut yourself with underinsured, uninsured motorist coverage on that end either. Which I just did talk about on auto insurance. But then you can also consider umbrella insurance. It provides an extra layer of liability coverage beyond the limits of your primary insurance policies, offers additional protection for your assets and retirement savings in the event of a catastrophic loss or lawsuit. So where do we go from here? It's very important to continually be doing insurance reviews, keep up on your property maintenance. You know, you don't want to fall behind in those things. Keep your property free and clear of, you know, brush, fire hazards. Keep your garage nice and tidy. Don't keep rags soiled with gasoline in there and things like that. Actually, I just had a house, 4 houses down from me catch fire a month ago, complete up in flames, everything. He had some open rags or something in the garage that combusted. The fire department couldn't get the hydrant open in front of 2 houses. They couldn't get the fire hydrant open. Extremely terrifying. They finally did get the fire out with water hoses. So, I mean, property maintenance is a huge thing. And that's kind of where I go to the community portion of making sure you're working with your fire stations. Try to help them if there's ways you guys can work together as a community to get a high ISO rating for the insurance for the fire department, things like that. I would say in general, be kind to each other, keep a level head. You know, if you're gonna flip out over a McDonald's hamburger, take a deep breath. You know, take a deep breath. Think to yourself, am I willing to throw my life away over a ketchup packet? You know, that sounds crazy. That sounds absolutely crazy, but I'm serious. Don't throw your life away over a ketchup packet, people. Keep a level head. Be proactive with your property and your assets. Be smart with your coverage and your finances. Ask for help. Don't be shy to reach out to your insurance professional. Don't be shy to reach out to, you know, your loan professional to see if there are HELOCs available that could help you through some of these challenging times, help you fix up your property so that you don't have these kind of risks. Talk to your realtor. If it's something where it's becoming out of your control as far as the finances, it's okay to downgrade. It's okay to move. You know, protect yourself and your finances, protect your ability to thrive in life, and just keep going. You know, where do we go from here? We just have to move forward. We can look in that little teeny tiny mirror on the windshield, or we could look out the big old windshield and see what's ahead. So look forward, keep going, be nice, be kind, keep a little level head. Don't kill anyone over a pack of ketchup, and I think you'll all be okay. Does anyone have any questions? Gina, any questions that I can answer for you?
No. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you. Thank you for being with us today.
And Gina, if you have any questions for the rest of us with the house hunting and hacking group as a realtor question or a mortgage lending question, feel free to also ask any of those questions as well.
No, everything is okay. Thanks.
Thank you. So if you have questions about insurance, if you want to, you know, reach out to me, ask some questions, get a quote, just see what we've got kind of going on here. You can find us on Facebook, Google, Instagram. My telephone line's there. You can email us. We're happy to help you in any way that we can. And I want to thank you for joining us tonight. I appreciate your time, and I hope you have found value in this presentation. And thank you.
Yay. Thank you, Amber.
Thank you. Thank
Thorough.
you for the time. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen with our closing announcements. And so hopefully you guys can see this. So our next our next meeting will be Tuesday, May the 12th at 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. We're not sure yet on the presenter or the topic, but hopefully we can get that resolved in the next day or so. We also have a Facebook group where people can submit questions about all the different industries that we try to cover. That's our Facebook group link. We also are on YouTube. We have a YouTube channel where we post the videos and recordings that we have of these at House Hunting Hacking. So you can rewatch them or share them with others that you think would find the information helpful. And otherwise, if that's it, then I guess we will call it a day. John, did you have any questions for us at all, or Amber?
No, it was a great conversation. Thank you, Amber. I feel more inspired to just be good and save money.
I feel more inspired to go and get all those pine needles out of my front yard and bag them up and throw them in the trash.
All the pines from under your pine trees.
Yeah, I already did 3 bags over the weekend, and there's at least a dozen more out there for me to go collect, so.
Well, Jen, you should put those out on in your composting bins. I hear pine is amazing for composting. Get some soil in there, get all that stuff broken up, and plant a garden.
Dang. Well, I will look into that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Alrighty, well, it's good to talk to you guys, and I will see you in about 3 weeks when we have our next meeting. And again, if anybody has any ideas for that topic, there's a lot going on in the news lately, especially with NAR settlements and stuff. And so there's lots to talk about in the real estate world. So thank you, Gina, for being our guest tonight and joining us. And we hope to see you again.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Gina. Have a good night. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.